Hi everyone, good evening. Sorry for the delay. We were just waiting for Illuminations to check and give us the rights, give me the rights so that I can share my screen actually, and then we can begin. So I guess we may still be waiting for a few more people. We need a few more people for us to start the webinar. In the meanwhile, just let me know why you're here today. What do you expect from today's webinar? If we are going to be a small group, then it makes more sense for me to customize it to any questions or any particular areas that you would like me to address today. So you can either unmute yourself and let me know, or there's a chat box here. I'm just going to say hi in the chat box. Let me know what brings you here. Please also, you can, if you feel like, then you can turn your videos on. It's always better to have more interaction than a one-sided monologue. So let me know. I'm just going to wait for a second till I have your answers. Where you are, what brings you here today?
Okay, hi. I'm quite keen to attend your session today. I'm Divya.
Hi, Divya.
My main purpose is sometimes you have this one little incident in the morning which might not go as per you.
Yes.
And it just ruins your day. You just carry that emotion throughout the day. And it is sometimes difficult to come out of it. So I would actually like to learn how to manage those emotions, extreme emotions. It's not always the negative emotion. It can even be positive. Sometimes you just swing between those emotions too much. So
yes.
I'm just trying to find a calmness or something to balance myself for the day. That's what.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Of course. Then I will definitely. Maybe I will begin with that, Divya. Thanks for sharing, because that's exactly what we are looking at, as in understanding the emotions. And as you rightly say, it may not be a negative emotion all the time. It could be an intense emotion or something like, as you say, it happens in the morning and then it kind of jolts you out completely. And the rest of the day, you kind of carrying energy residue of that emotion into your day. Thank you so much. I'll still wait for the others to share. So Dolly, Sujaya, Vicky, are you here? If so, then just either type in or unmute yourself and let us know if you're here and you can hear me.
Hi, Arpita. This is Dolly. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Dolly, what brings you here? What would you like to take away from today's webinar?
I think, as rightly said by Divya, a lot of times we go through these emotions which basically guide us throughout the day or lives. We carry so much of either positivity, negativity, and that basically influences all the things that you do in your day. So just managing your emotions is something that even I'm looking at, and if there is any perspective that I can get, I'll be really happy with that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks both of you for sharing this. Okay, I'm just going to check if there are any other people who will join us. Otherwise, we are going to begin. Give me a second. Can you still see my screen, or is it not visible now?
Oh, we can't see your screen. We can see your lovely face, though. Nice. We can, but no.
My screen is also frozen here for some reason. I don't know. Give me one moment. Let me see what's happening here. Okay. Yeah, it's opening. So give me a moment. Let the presentation open again and. So it looks like it's just 4 of us. So we can customize. Please feel free to stop me, ask questions at any time. It's perfectly fine because that's, I guess, the best way. If we are a small group, we won't be interrupted by a big audience. So here we go. That's our topic for today. I do not think I've met any of you before. So let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Arpita. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and a mind science specialist at Illuminations JLT. I practice other modalities apart from hypnotherapy, like family constellations, regression therapy, etc. I am also deeply into corporate wellness and training. This isn't my first career. This isn't my first, as I say, it's the second innings of my career. I studied economics. I had completed my MBA. I worked in the corporate sector for more than 15 years. And then I came to, I was introduced to this line of work, which completely changed my life, the way I was, with the struggles that I was facing at that time. And that, long story short, that made me study these modalities. And finally, I quit my corporate job and I came full-time into this line of work. So today I practice as a therapist at Illuminations. I'm also a teacher of the same curriculum that I had studied many years back, the integrated clinical therapy. And once a month, twice a month, I'm here with you sharing a topic, and dependent on the topic, and then how hypnotherapy can help, and how try to bring in elements that are pretty day-to-day that can, affect and impacts all of us. So today we are talking about emotions. Okay, somebody has a comment. Let me just quickly see. Vicky says, hi Vicky, you're joining us from Lithuania or you're here in Dubai? So the latest events, the war in Ukraine bring loads of different emotions. I can feel like I can't even go along with my day. Yeah, constant news. Yes, I know. It's like you're in Dubai. Okay. True, as in it was COVID for the last few months, years, and now we are faced with war. But that's exactly the premise with which I want to begin, because there are so many things in our environment around us that happen to us, things that are beyond our control, and we are exposed to them. So whether it's a pandemic, whether it's a war, whether it's a natural disaster, or whether it's just a fight with somebody in the morning, there are so many things that are not under our control, and they affect us. And when I say they affect us at the level of how we think. It affects us at the level of how we feel, which is what our topic today are, emotions. It affects us energetically, how we feel in the body, or purely energetic imprints. And finally, it also affects us physically. Our topic today is emotions, so we'll focus on how these things affect us and how can hypnotherapy help for you to gain back your power, to not necessarily control your emotions, but understand them, process them, and have in your mind some kind of a mind map that, if I recognize this is the emotion, what am I going to do about it? And then you can utilize hypnotherapy as a very, very effective tool to let that go, to let it pass. So emotions is a common word, right? So we use this all the time. We feel, we emote. So that's how I'm defining emotions today, because again, for each one of us, we can have a very, very different view of it. Emotion is a strong feeling that we kind of gather, we feel from where? From our circumstances, from things around us, from relationships, our own mood. The important thing to note is emotions are very, very subjective to each one of us. So the same thought or the same news can produce different emotions in different people. If you look at integrating and understanding us as human beings in any holistic science, and one of those holistic sciences, one of those integrative sciences is hypnotherapy, you will see that we don't consider ourselves just to be our bodies, right? We have a physical body and that is very, very important. But however, that's not the only thing that we are made of. We are made of something more than that, something that keeps us alive, the intangible parts of our existence. And without going too deep into that subject, because that can in itself be another day, another webinar, we believe that, there are 4 layers in which we exist. The first one is the layer of thoughts. We think anywhere between 60 to 80,000 thoughts in a day, and each thought creates an emotion. So we don't kind of categorize a thought to be negative or positive. A thought can be just a thought. In form of an energetic expression, we can say a thought is very much like potential energy, where it is just neutral. When this thought comes into our mind, depending on how we process that thought, it then starts to create something into our bodies, inside our bodies or inside our minds. It means the potent energy of the thought now gets converted into kinetic energy. If you split the word emotion, in holistic sciences, we define emotion as energy in motion. Today, we are focusing on that. Just a sneak peek into how this works. When there's a thought, it creates an emotion. Emotion affects the energy levels of our body, or it actually affects the energy body, which is our aura, which is our chakras. And finally, when the energy body is affected, it then percolates into our physical body. Now, one of you said, right, that something happens in the morning and then my whole day probably goes for a toss, or I'm carrying the imprints of that intense emotion or the fight that I've had. So as I said, I'm going to begin with that. So that fight or the beginning of the fight is what we call as triggers. So before saying how we are going to heal emotions and how we are going to let go of emotions, let's first understand why in the first place are we sometimes in a spot where we are completely, triggered by something that has happened in the environment or somebody's words, somebody's actions. That is what we call as triggers. So if you go to the definition of what we mean by triggers, a trigger is an experience. So it could be somebody's words, somebody's actions. Triggers could be very conscious, or it could be very unconscious. It could just be a smell that you get whilst you're, walking on the streets, and that kind of reminds you of something. Triggers could be a song. Suddenly you hear on the radio and it kind of floods back your memories. It could be anything that draws us back into the past. It takes us away from the present. And what happens when we are dragged back into the past? We immediately get in touch with old feelings and old behaviors. If our past or incidences of the past have been completely digested, say a trauma has happened, and not necessarily trauma, I mean a big thing. Say that you have experienced loss of some kind, maybe loss of a job, loss of a relationship, loss of a person. Now, if we, in the past, if we have been able to heal or process that loss, then today, nothing can trigger us back and remind us of that time. We'll still remember the loss, but we will not have an emotional explosion inside us. However, if that experience or that trauma has not been processed in the right way, many a times, small things in our day-to-day life has the potential to drag us back there. Just a few examples of what are these triggers that throw us into this spiral of intense or negative emotions. Somebody else controlling your time. Like you plan your day, I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And then something happens, which is again outside your control, and you feel helpless. Being asked to do something you don't like. Taking orders from authority figures, parents, teachers, mentors, guides, bosses, any kind of authority in terms of organizations. You feel as though you aren't getting, or you will not get any of these needs met. So now it's not an exhaustive list. Whenever we feel we are in a stuck situation, in a helpless situation, or our needs of love, acceptance, respect, attention, consistency, you can name them. If we have a feeling that we are not able to kind of get that, or will never get that, that is exactly when we get triggered. Now, this trigger can be very conscious if you know that you're getting angry or sad, or this emotion is welling up, or this could be completely unconscious. And the most intriguing part is many a times we are not even able to understand what is the emotion that I am feeling. What am I being overwhelmed with? So I will start with that. A technique, a tool, in fact, it's just a very simple way of questioning your own self to first identify that negative emotion or that intense emotion that is now kind of, controlling your entire body, your mind. And that's what we are calling as potential triggers. Because if you think of it, there are hundreds of emotions that each one of us can feel. And it doesn't help if you're not able to pinpoint and figure out what is my pattern, what is my repetitive incidents, or repetitive, we can call it repetitive incidents that has a theme. So what is my theme in terms of losing my emotional resilience? It's a very simplified tool. Because it will boil all these emotions down, or club all these emotions down into 4 potential big fat boxes. And if you're able to tackle that, identify first, tackle that, then it can give you immediate release in terms of identification and release, and even understanding why I have this theme of getting triggered by. Because if you think deeply and you think of our last few times when you felt emotionally overwhelmed, you may very well find that there is a common thread. There are certain specific kind of behavior, specific kind of people, specific kind of situations that trigger you. And that trigger would be very, very, very much personal to you compared to the same incident happening to your friend, a family member, and they don't get triggered. Triggering only happens when we allow our minds to move away from the present moment into somewhere else. And when I say somewhere else, there are only 2 places where our minds can go. Our minds can either flash back and go into the past, or our mind can project itself into the future. Because in the present moment, actually, there is no problem. Because if there's a problem in the present moment, we are adults. We can identify the problem and we can generate solutions and come out of it. The only time those emotional imprints stay with us, or we are not able to let go of it or function properly through the day, is because probably something has kind of come in and flooded us, and we are no longer thinking in the present moment. There are, out of these 4 triggers that we will be talking today, 3 come from the past and 1 is from the future. The first trigger that comes from the past, which means people, talk, situations that instill in you or remind you, I did something wrong in the past. Now give it a moment, think about it, and tell me, what are the emotions, or what is the emotion actually that comes up when you think, I did something wrong? Again, you can unmute yourself, or you could type in the chat box and think of times when you have felt that It's been my fault. I did it again. And I'm the one who gets it wrong every time. Tell me, what are the emotions that you feel? Thank you, Divya. Spot on. Guilt. Self-blame. And it's a heavy one to carry because there's nobody else to blame. And this can actually spiral us down, just not for a few hours, but maybe for days, months. And from my personal experience as a therapist, it can even go for years and a lifetime if we don't choose to change or kind of have that opportunity to work through it. So that's our core emotion number 1 today. Number 2, situation again from the past. Now that this situation is, I did not do anything wrong. Someone did something wrong to me. Now, when somebody has done something wrong to you, or in the past, or in the present moment, somebody is shouting at you, somebody is ill-treating you, somebody is being harsh with you, tell me, what is the emotion that you feel? Divya, looks like you're the only one answering the question and you're answering it pretty right. Yes. When we feel that there is aggression or there is any kind of negativity that is put towards us, what we feel, of course, is anger. I don't know where there we are, anger. And then the third one, there's only one more from the past that can bother us, one more situation. And that situation is, I have not done anything wrong. Nobody else has done anything wrong to me, but the situation is wrong. I mean, there's pandemic going on. I haven't done anything about pandemic. I don't know. Nobody around me has done anything about it, but we are all worldwide under the grip of a pandemic or under the threat of a war. What do you feel when you are in a situation when that situation is bigger than you and you have no control over it and the situation is not going in your favor? Thank you, Sujaya. And you say, why me? Yes, you're correct. All of these are why me syndromes. Like, why did I do something wrong? Why did somebody else do something wrong? Why is the situation wrong? So yes, the why me syndrome covers all of them. This time, Vicky has the right answer. Yes, we feel helpless because it is beyond my control. There's nothing I can do. Again, a very pulling down kind of an emotion where what can I do? And then the last one, there's only one trigger that can come from the future. For example, my life is fine now. There's no problem. I don't feel like guilt. I don't feel anger. There's no helplessness. But I constantly think, what if something goes wrong in the future? What is the emotion that you feel when you are constantly in the thought process of what is going to happen? Is the war going to happen? Is COVID going to happen? Is a natural disaster coming? What if I make a mistake? So all these what ifs. And I think that's something Divya mentioned for the previous one. The answer to that is fear or worry. So from going forward from now, if you're in the grip of any of these emotions that you're not able to first lay your finger on and figure out what is it right now, then in that case, sorry, some messages that are coming here. Can you give me a moment? I do not know what. Yeah, can you just check there's some messages about some application? I am not sure I can attend to that at the moment. So please have a look, Pia or anybody else from Illuminations who can see. Okay, so this is the basis on which you can first identify. And the best way to identify is to ask yourself, what are you feeling? Are you going back into I did something wrong mode? Are you going back into someone else something wrong mode, or some situation going wrong, or is it your fear? Now, of course, there is a way to flip these emotions, and our topic today is about how do we do that with hypnotherapy. But before getting there, let's just first understand. Now we understand we get triggered. Let's understand now, why do we get triggered then? What is that? What is happening in our space that some small thing around us today can escalate our feelings and our emotions to such a high degree? In order to understand, we will go deep into the study or understanding of the mind, what we call as the mind science. Hypnotherapy is one of the various modalities under the bigger umbrella of mind sciences. So if I ask you, what is mind, what would you say? I'm pretty sure we all agree that we have a mind. We all do. But if I ask you, what is mind and where is your mind? Give it a thought again, take a few seconds, and please share with me. Either you can unmute or you could chat and tell me what is your understanding of the mind. Because mind is whatever the mind is, that is the only thing that is feeling that emotion, feeling that trigger, and correlating and putting us in a space that is not very comfortable. Rasha says, it is the power that controls our actions. Yes. Yes, thank you, Rasha, for also mentioning that it is not a physical thing. That was exactly what I was looking for. So many times, we mistake the mind as the brain. They're two different words because they're two different things. Mind is not the brain. Now, even if you Google or if you look at the Oxford Dictionary meaning of mind, and the definition that you will find in dictionaries is it's an element of a person. And the focus here is on the word element. It's the element of a person that enables them to be aware of the world, their experiences, to think, to feel, the faculty of consciousness and thought. In our parlance, we say that we all have this intangible asset, a tool, what we call as the mind. It's a powerful force. Rasha used that same definition, that it's a power that we have. It can either empower us if we understand how the mind works, or it can actually plunge us into very, very sad situations, depending on what we understand. The prime difference here is the brain versus the mind. Brain is like the hardware of the computer through which I'm connecting to you. So I am running the webinar on my laptop, and my laptop, the way I'm reaching out to you, I'm talking to you, I'm changing slides, is only through touching the tangible part, which is the hardware. But you're also watching my PowerPoint, and we are also connected on Zoom. You can see the video. You're typing on the chat. Just having the laptop or your phones, your devices today doesn't allow us to be in the webinar. What we also need is the software, the Zoom, the Microsoft PowerPoint. But guess what? We are never able to touch that software. I can't touch Zoom. I cannot feel Zoom. I cannot touch Microsoft PowerPoint. Every time I touch or work on it, I'm still operating through the hardware. It is the same with our brains and mind. Brain is the hardware, the body is the hardware. Mind is defined in holistic sciences as a vibrating ball of energy located all around us, the center of which is at the pit of our stomach. It's a very weird definition, but if you think a little deeper, you will see that it says the epicenter of this tool, the epicenter of this software of mind, is at the pit of our stomach. And if you go by human anatomy, what organ is at the pit of our stomach? It is our small intestines or the gut. And hence we very frequently use the phrase gut feeling. If you actually think deeper, technically our gut shouldn't be feeling anything. Gut just digests the food that we eat. Then why do we say I have a gut feeling about a person or a situation? We say it because there is that understanding in all cultures, all religion, all communities, that there is something intangible, that is very powerful, and epicenter of that mind is in the gut area. Now, let me very quickly, because when I teach clinical hypnotherapy, this in itself is a half day when we go into the theory of the mind and understand the functioning of the mind. But I'm going to give you a sneak peek into it, because our topic is still emotions, but we are trying to understand why we get triggered with these emotions. We get triggered because these emotions are processed. The information that comes to us is processed by the mind in a very interesting way. So let's look at the structure of this mind. So imagine this is the vibrating ball of energy all around us, the center of which is at the pit of our stomach. Of course, we understand that there is a very conscious part of the mind, and then there is a subconscious part of the mind. Think of this as an iceberg. If you see an iceberg in the ocean, you're only able to see 1/10 of it. The 9/10 of the iceberg is always submerged in water. Same is the case with our minds. The conscious mind is roughly around 10%, which means the bigger part of our mind is the subconscious mind, which is around 88 to 90%. Now, what do we do with the conscious part of the mind? We do all these stuff. We think, we logic, we analyze, we feel, we decide, we judge. So all our mind and your cognitive functions are in the conscious mind. And we live our conscious mind, we live our lives by utilizing only 10% of the entire mind's capacity. And we are doing pretty well. So just imagine if we could even scratch on the surface of the subconscious, how much more power, how much more awareness that we can get, and what would be the quality of our lives. So if everything is happening in the conscious mind, thinking, feeling, logic, analysis, judgment, then the question is, what is happening in the subconscious space? Why do we even have a subconscious mind? Subconscious mind is simpler than the conscious mind, the functions of it. Function number 1 is survival. It keeps us alive. If I tell you, switch on your videos, raise your right hand and wave at me, each one of you can do that. Because conscious mind controls our voluntary movements in the body. And when you wave at me, then I might say that why don't you have such good control over your body? Then why don't you stop the functioning of your liver for the next 5 seconds? And if I tell you to do that, you're going to laugh at me and say, that's not possible, Arpita, like, what a silly question. True, none of us can control it because internal body movements, internal organ functioning is controlled by the subconscious mind. So when you feel a very strong emotion and your heart starts to beat and you feel nauseous and your throat dries, you have no control of it. Now understand that triggering is actually happening at the level of the subconscious mind. The other thing, the other function of the subconscious mind is storage. What does it mean? It means the conscious mind is like the CPU of your computer, which is constantly processing information that is coming in. However, the subconscious mind is like the hard drive of your computer. And what do we do in the hard drive? We store files. So you and I and everybody in the world, we have zillions of files or experiences that we store in our subconscious space. Subconscious, they are not readily available or we are not able to access them whenever we wish to. That's the function of the subconscious mind. Now, if the strength of the conscious mind is 1 times x, the strength of the subconscious mind is anywhere between 6,000 to 35,000 times x. This is the reason you cannot control your emotions when you get triggered. So you may know that, okay, this is probably not the person, what he means. Maybe, I'm overreacting to this situation. And many a times when we're in the grip of these emotions, a part of us is very aware that, why am I behaving like this? Why do I have tears rolling down my eyes? Why do I have my heart palpitating? but we have no control over it. Because when this triggering happens from the subconscious mind, it is at that moment beyond our control. Now, this subconscious space is just not our own experiences. So to make things more interesting and complex, this subconscious space not only carries our memory, which is called as the modern memory. So from the time we are born, my life experiences is my modern memory. But we also carry something called primitive memory, the memory in our DNA, in our genetics, what we holistically call as the evolutionary memory, ancestral memory, past life memory. You may call it in the name that you believe in. For the purpose of the webinar, I'm going to call it evolutionary memory, which means something that is not belonging to me. So if I carry a trait that has come down in my DNA through my ancestral line that doesn't belong to me, that would be my primitive memory. So we are just not triggered by what we experience. We are also triggered by the emotions or the experiences of our ancestors, of people who have lived before us, of our past lives, whatever we want to call it. That is another deeper layer of why we get so emotionally charged up. Last but not, and why we get charged up, coming up to the part that it imbalances or disbalances us, this emotional frenzy that we go into is because when the triggering is happening at the level of the subconscious and at the level of a very deep level, we operate in two ways. Our basic instincts. We either go into a fight mode or we go into a flight mode. And either ways, we then lose tab of what or how we are should be behaving or how we should interact with whatever is happening in the environment at that time. Either we completely withdraw, that is the flight, or we become confrontational, which is the fight. And one last bit, when we're looking at the mind, there is also a third part of the mind, what we call as the critical mind or the critical filter. This part is developed between the ages 0 to 8. In simple words, this is our conditioning. Things that have been told to us, taught to us many, many, many times in the first 8 years of our life. It depends on 4 things. So when we say conditioning, depends on the SEER factor, as you see on the screen. S for socio, the society, the family we have been brought up in. E for economic, situation where we are brought up in, the family, financial issues, financial situation. E for education, that we have received or not received. And R is our religious beliefs. So in simple words, the software of this mind for you and I are programmed in the first 8 years of our life. At around the age of 7 and 8, we get conditioned, our belief systems are formed. And for the rest of our lives, we operate out of that belief system. So imagine this whole software is being coded, programmed in the first 8 years, and then we keep repeating that program and that code. Now, belief systems or embedded belief systems actually have a very powerful impact on how we emote, what kind of emotions we feel. So it is a combination of 2 things, the experience that I've had or my ancestors would have had, and B, the kind of belief systems that are embedded in me. And now when the trigger comes, now imagine trigger comes from outside. So the conscious part of the mind tries to deal with it. If the trigger is too big, it then gets pushed down into the critical mind and then into the subconscious. Now imagine the subconscious to be like, zillions of files. And there are small files in there which now start to resonate with that trigger that is happening to you in that moment. And now it is like a domino effect. So when one file blips, there are probably so many files. So for example, if guilt is a pattern in my life, or I'm very sensitive to, if somebody makes me feel guilty and I feel emotionally overwhelmed, it is not the first time that today I'm feeling guilt. I may have felt guilt zillions of times in my life. So when the trigger comes today morning and the fight happens today morning, I am just not operating out of my present moment. I am now operating and pulling up like a domino effect, or like, you know, how if there's a thread that has come out of your dress and you pull the thread, and, you know, the entire dress kind of starts to get into a mess and the thread starts to come out. This is exactly what happens in the subconscious space. A lot of other unconscious files start to trigger, and that is when you get completely jammed by your emotions. Now that we understand this, let's understand then how does hypnotherapy help us with this. And hypnotherapy, our word hypnosis, has a lot of myths, a lot of questions around it. So let me just first explain what is hypnosis and what is hypnotherapy. It comes from the Greek word hypnos, which means nervous sleep. It's a paradox, right? You can't be sleeping and you cannot be nervous at the same time. What it means is hypnosis, like how you go into meditation. Hypnosis is an altered state of mind in which your body is as relaxed as if you were sleeping, and your mind is hyperactive, like agile. That is what is the connotation of the word nervous. It is a combination of the body and mind, where the physical body is very relaxed, but the mind is extremely alert. It is also a very, very deep state of relaxation. Hypnosis happens to you and me every single day. It is nothing new. Of course, when we work with clients in the clinical setup, we are clinically inducing that state, but it's a natural state of mind. Every time you go to sleep, so tonight when you go to sleep, be very aware of that zone when you've switched off the light, you've kept your book away, now you turn, you pull your blanket and you're going to fall asleep. You're not fully awake, you're not fully asleep is the hypnotic trance. And when tomorrow morning your alarm beeps and you put it on snooze, you give yourself a stretch and you're slowly getting up, you're again in hypnotic trance. Why do we use this trance? Because in this trance, client or patient can have direct access into their subconscious mind. That is what is hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy is a therapeutic modality where we use trance to delve deeper into the subconscious to find out, why do I get triggered with certain things? And these emotions, why do they stick to me in a way that I cannot do anything? Very quickly, myths about hypnosis. As a practicing therapist, these are the lists I get from my clients all the time. There are so many versions of it. So the biggest fear about hypnotherapy is I'm going to become helpless under hypnosis. Because in movies, in social media, the hypnosis is sometimes projected in a way where we have these pendulums dangling in our hands. And then when you go under hypnosis, you go to La La Land and you don't remember anything, people get stuck. None of that happens. Even under hypnosis, you are aware. You are very focused, but you're very aware of what is happening around you. You're totally in control. Nobody else is controlling you from the outside. That's a complete myth. Not everybody can be hypnotized. No, that's not true. Everyone can be hypnotized if they give you consent, if they agree to be hypnotized, and if they choose the hypnotic trance to be used and to be guided into solving their emotional crisis situation. Hypnosis is same as sleeping, not at all. When we sleep, if you look at the brain waves, we are in what we call as the delta state. Hypnosis is, being awake is the beta state, and hypnosis is the theta or the alpha state. So it's not the same as sleeping. In a typical clinical hypnotherapy session, you are very much awake. That part is awake. You're not fully awake, you're not fully sleeping, but you're certainly not sleeping. You remember the entire the session. Your mind has not gone anywhere. Hypnosis makes you reveal deep secrets. No, they don't. When we work with clients as therapists, we work with objectives. The sessions are completely confidential, and yet you do not reveal anything else except what you want to reveal. You are still in charge of how much and to what extent, and you allow yourself to go into your subconscious. Hypnotherapy is like magic. It's a mystical practice, and hypnotherapists have special powers. Not at all. It's not magical. Well, what is magical is the rate at which healing happens under hypnosis. That's the only magical part. It's not a mystical practice. You don't need to do any rituals or create a light or put a sound or burn sage or none of that. What is, and of course, hypnotherapists I don't have any special powers. As I explained what my background was, I came from the corporate world and this is what I do today. It is a science. It can be studied. You can become a practitioner, or anybody from any walk of life can be doing that. So when I teach my classes, there are people who come from various walks of life. Some come to integrate it and make it their career. Some come just for their self-healing. What happens under hypnosis? So typically, if you are stuck with an emotion that you cannot get out of, and when you come for a session, the idea is not to erase your past experiences. So we don't go into the subconscious mind and say, now delete this file. This never happened to you. No, we can't do that, right? Because what has happened in the past has happened and we cannot go into the past and change anything. What do we do in a session? The client goes into a trance state. We understand the trigger. We identify the core emotion through diagnostic tools. And then we go to those files or those experiences from the past that are carrying this emotional charge. So for example, remember the slide with the drawing with the mind? You saw those files there. Imagine in your subconscious mind, there are files that are corrupted. When I say corrupted, imagine if you have a corrupted file in your system, every time you will try to start your computer, it will blip and fail. That is what's happening. Every time I want to get out of this emotion, I get dragged into it. What do we do? As therapists, we don't read what is in your subconscious. You can only read that. We are like GPSs. We will take you from point A to point B. So I am stuck in my sense of anger. Now I want to move out of anger and do something different. I don't want to feel this anger anymore. We go into that subconscious space. We pick up those files that are corrupted and we bring it onto the desktop of your computer, to your consciousness. When I say corrupted, what do I mean? I mean those files have two parts. One part is the fact that something has happened in the past. And the second part is because of something has happened in the past, imagine that file has a coating of an emotion. There's a charge attached to it. Hypnotherapy is a process to neutralize that experience, that charge. We separate the person from the experience. We can only get into grip of emotions when me and my experiences are the same. No, I am who I am and I may have had an experience. And when that separation is done under trance, then client can very easily is able to detach himself or herself from the toxicity of that emotion. That in itself, in a very short way, is hypnotherapy. So the ultimate goal is to reprogram our thoughts, our beliefs, by healing out our subconscious patterns that conflict with our desires. So the desire today for us is to understand how do I control my emotions, for example? How do I let go of negative emotions? And hypnotherapy is a beautiful tool to do that. So what do we do and how do we do? We call it the flip. So when we have identified that the theme is guilt, the only way to come out of that is to figure out of all those mistakes that I have done, what did I learn out of it? So helping a person see from the perspective of guilt, because what can we do if we have done something wrong? There's no way we can go back and change anything from the past. The only thing that we can do is learn going forward. And only this learning and the shift will happen when through the venting process, and that can happen under trance, that can happen cognitively as well sometimes, we have let go of that stuck up emotion. What do we do with anger? When, in the past, people has done wrong to us, and it happens many a times. We were in situations where we couldn't protect ourselves, where we were helpless, and bad things have happened. The way to look at it when you've let go of that anger is moving slowly towards acceptance. Now, when I say acceptance, I'm not saying you have to accept bad behavior. I'm saying here that we accept that this incident happened to me in the past. But because I am not to be blamed, I'm not going to carry the consequences of that in my future. That's the journey from our anger into acceptance. And then when we work with helplessness, like helpless state is a complete disempowered state. And the only way to come out of it is to find or create space for new motivation. So when we cleanse those files, when we let go of the stuck emotions, it's not hard for us to do any of those things that are written in the green on the right side of your slide. Learning is not difficult, accepting is not difficult, motivating ourselves is not difficult, and even converting fear into faith is not difficult, as long we are able to flip those files, those experiences, heal those parts of us. That's where a lot of time we use inner child healing techniques to let go of all those stuck emotions in our system. And hypnotherapy is a very, very safe tool to do so. Why hypnotherapy? Because I think it's very, very safe. Nothing can go wrong. And can you tell me why nothing can go wrong? It is simply because we are working on the subconscious mind. And the function of the subconscious mind is to protect us. So at most, what can happen is, oh, I didn't feel anything. But this therapy, this modality has no side effects. It cannot damage or create any other issues. It's a life skill as far as I'm concerned, and I believe that, irrespective of whether we choose this as a hobby, we choose it as our profession, but the basics of mind sciences, basics of hypnotherapy should be available to each one of us, and that's what inspires to me a teacher of this modality. If you see the effectiveness of hypnotherapy after 6 sessions, this is taken from the American Health Journal. The recovery rate is 93% compared to behavioral therapy or psychoanalysis. Now, this is not to say other modalities don't work or they are not good, not at all. Different people react differently to different modalities. But with hypnotherapy, it's almost like a 80-20 principle. We work straight into the subconscious space where 80% of the issue or the pattern or the block is there. Now, for some people, some had questions about how we can integrate that into your lives. So I'm just quickly going to take you through it. Who can be a hypnotherapist? Anybody can be a hypnotherapist. You don't need any qualifications. You don't have to be a psychiatrist, psychologist, or even have any background in behavioral therapy at all. What is important is if this fascinates you, if this is something that is interesting to you, you could, as I say, you could either take it up as a career or you could just pick it up as your own self-help tool. I'm not going to get into the details because our topic is not based on the course. If any of you have any queries about the course, you can either get in touch with me directly or you could get in touch with Illuminations. So I will stop my monologue, and if there are any questions, then please let me know. Okay, I can see something in the chat box. Rasha, you found it helpful. Thank you so much. I think this webinar is also recorded, so you can all, and because you've attended, you can ask Illuminations. They can even send you a copy of that. Here are my details. You can reach out to me directly. I work at Illuminations exclusively, so you can reach me through Illuminations as well. See if there are any questions. You can unmute or you can definitely chat with me in the chat box as well. Thank you, Divya. I will be around here for a little while more. If you have questions, please feel free to shoot. Thank you, Vicky. Thanks so much. No questions. It was interesting. Thank you. Thanks so much, Jaya. Okay, if there are no more questions, then I guess it's my time to thank you for being with me here today. Have a lovely evening and feel free to reach out anytime. Take care and bye.